Oh 7 citizens, my name is Black and welcome to my channel CasaBLACK Gaming, a home where new players and old can find helpful guides, honest ship reviews, graphical vehicle loadouts, and deep dives into the roadmap. Now sorry about my voice, I've been having a sore throat the last few days, but I wanted to share an opinion and have a conversation on some thoughts that I've pretty much had the previous 3 years since playing Star Citizen, and that is concerning the whole alpha versus live game situation. So let's just jump right into it. Now, first off, there were two things which prompted me to want to discuss this topic now. The first of which being the most excellent Star Citizen live video that we got with the development leadership team, Rich, Rick, and JJ last Friday, and the other coming from an unlikely source, at least for me, a video that Salty Mike put out late Friday. Now, that video's link is down in the description below. Now, for those of you who follow me, you know that Salty Mike and I are probably on complete opposite sides of the spectrum, at least on how negative he can be at times, and my main mantra being positivity. But I've also, in many instances, agreed with his criticisms of various aspects of the decision-making at CIG, such as him mentioning in his video about disagreeing with players who are having to sub to be able to test in Wave 1, so etc., things like that. Now, I was very impressed with Salty Mike's own admission and kind of change of heart about his opinions on the game being more on the alpha side of things versus the live game aspect, especially in regards to their releasing content that clearly isn't ready to go live at times, at least by us, but yet is pushed out anyway. Now, that's always bothered me somewhat too, but still, especially after 3.18 and hearing them admit that the main reason so many issues came about in 3.18 was because the testing simply had not been enough to flesh out all possibilities and edge cases. Now, that to me made sense back then, and I pretty much stopped questioning their judgment on releases after that. Now, yes, many will say that the marketing can influence when things come out, but I think if that were 100% true, then why has marketing not pushed them to release anything for 2024 yet, other than a few ship sales coinciding with events and maybe the Hornets that have come out? Now, right now, Star Citizen funding is sitting pretty low compared to the previous 2 years, and I think that's mostly because there has not been a new patch yet, where we would normally get around March, and that usually brings some kind of new ship with it as well. But with 323 taking longer to come out, we have seen a shift not only in a release, but I think in sales. Anyway, the cart is getting ahead of the horse here, and let me circle back around to Salty Mike and how his change came because of the Star Citizen Live that dropped on Friday, and also because of a note that Xylo put out as well. Now, if you've not watched that yet or read Xylo's note, I highly recommend you do so, and not just the quickened version that Noobifier puts out for Star Citizen Live. Go listen, especially to Richard Tyrer, who is now basically second to Chris Roberts himself, and I think you're going to see something remarkable and something the game has been lacking that I've been on about pretty much ever since I started playing and following the development closely. So to me, the big change came when we read that letter from the chairman in March. Now, I'm not talking about the content of the letter, although the news that they were looking at what's needed for Star Citizen to come to a 1.0 release was very eye-opening, but more on that in a moment. No, it was that not only did we see Benoit make a guest appearance on the letter, but the new senior game director, Richard Tyrer, was also included. Now, to me, this was huge. When Richard Tyrer was moved over to Squadron 42 a couple of years ago, which is roughly a year or so after I started following the game, I kind of saw that as a loss for Star Citizen. The guy had just implemented one of my favorite things in the game, which is medical gameplay, and that system still needed, and still to this day needs, more love. And so with him gone, that meant that and many other systems and features were going to be shelved as well. So they were. But looking back on that now, I see it was for the best because Rich was able to go over to Squadron and get it moving in the right direction, which is now in a feature complete stage. So what happened next? Rich was announced as a senior game director over both Squadron 42 and the PU. He was moved over recently to take the work and flow that he instituted over in Squadron and bring that same thing into the PU. Richard Tyrer's arc here is in what I think could be the biggest and most important change that Chris Roberts made, and why the game's success will very much be tied to this moment if they can stick the landing. So my number one complaint about the Star Citizen project as a whole has been the lack of a great project manager. Now, some of you may know a coworker, friend, or family member who's been going to college to get a project manager degree. And you might have rolled your eyes at times because in many cases it could turn out to be a degree that is either never fully utilized or the position is not one that fully needs an actual project manager. And for some of your typical company departments, I would agree on this. But just think about the many moving parts within Star Citizen. I believe with almost 90% accuracy, which is just a made-up statistic, that many, if not most of the problems that CIG has had with unrealistic timelines and information or promises given not being met is just down to not having an overarching project manager. Now, if you need further proof of how important a timeline is, just look at how many months it's now taken the teams to come up with what all is needed for a 1.0 release. The progress tracker from the roadmap, which I've been following super closely for over 2 years now, has been at a virtual standstill until everything is sorted with what needs to be at a feature complete stage. Now, I think they have most of their plans done at this point, and they hinted at that as of last week that they will be sharing some of that soon, hopefully by updating the tracker. But still, it's been 3 months or more now of planning, which of course should include on their end some time estimates, and Rich does not seem like someone who will put forth unrealistic time frames for the sake of selling the game. Now, Chris Roberts, bless his soul, is a great visionary, and I'd even say he has some good leadership qualities, but when it comes to managing a project, I don't think he's it. He's the face of the game and the hype man and ultimate decision maker, but he is not the person to directly manage the project and run the teams. Now, that's not a knock against him, that's just the reality. No single person can do it all, and that's where Rich comes in. Chris Roberts' decision to move Rich over to Squadron 42 was the best decision he could have made, and I'm going to say it's what will likely lead to getting this crowning achievement off the ground. Now, don't get me wrong, the work Benoit and the Montreal studio has been doing and will continue to do is also very important, just as the rest of the various teams around the company. But having that one person, Rich, to divvy up the work and manage it under a tried and true system with the other two members of his team from that Star Citizen Live video, which is Rick and JJ, also working in tandem, and their desire to not put out a system until it's ready. And just hearing Rich not only talk the talk, but also be so involved that he was literally the go-to person sitting down playing the features to make that final decision was just awesome to watch and hear him talk about. Now, I will say that I don't envy Rich and the demands on his time, and I hope that his work-life balance is healthy, but I could see it not being that way. Anyway, the man is simply amazing, and I'm glad he's now back in the PU. So how does this tie into the alpha issues versus live debate? So shortly before the interview on Star Citizen Live, Xylo from CIG took a moment to enlighten the players on why they would be dropping a release before it's deemed by the players as ready. Now, keep in mind that this topic got extra attention because of a tweet Morphologist posted about 323 not feeling like it's ready, and granted, when he posted this, it was days before the Star Citizen Live interview, which also had a couple more patches since then, and it was under Morph's assumption that the patch would be released Thursday or Friday, as it was for many. And it still caused many more posts from other content creators and players alike saying something similar, so it was good to see Xylo come on and explain that, and I quote, "Every level of Star Citizen serves as a testing environment." That's every level, whether it's PTU, EPTU, the different waves, and then also live. Live is a testing environment. Now, of course, he goes on to say, while issues are often found in earlier phases, root causes and solutions are often best discovered with the wide stress testing of the full live alpha resource. Richard Tyrer also reiterated this point, saying that even when known problems crop up in the PTU, they sometimes still do not have enough details from the players or their own bug report monitoring to find the root of the cause, and it's only after it goes live with many more players encountering or causing the same issues on a massive scale that they can more accurately track down the issue and resolve it. Now, both Rich and Xylo made a strong case with these statements as to how and why our quote-unquote live release is still just a test bed and not meant as a released game. Yes, they monetize the hell out of the game like it's a released game, even to a greater and arguably more successful degree than many games that are live do. And for those on the outskirts looking and scratching their heads, not getting it, all they see are a bunch of morons forking over money hand over fist for a broken, unreleased game. And let's be clear here. We all might need to be mentally checked because that is exactly what we are all doing, forking over money for a broken, unreleased game. We are 100% gambling here that these devs will in fact do something that has not been done to this degree and scale and are going to stick the landing Iron Man style. Now, will they produce the game of our dreams? Probably not. We all have some grand illusions as to what Star Citizen should or can be, and in the end, I'm sure things will get pared back and some tough decisions are going to be made. But in my opinion, it will still be far superior to any other space sim MMO game out there, and I continue to see enough proof of concept work to believe the game is moving in the right direction. But I still very much see it as an alpha game and not a true live game. With Richard Tyler being over the PU now, my belief in the game coming to that 1.0 release is now a lot more firm, and the gamble seems less so. But let's get back to the alpha argument. Now, my evidence on Star Citizen being an alpha is that with any MMO alpha stage game, you're going to find the game to be in a state that is unfinished, with unreleased features that are core to the game going live. When MMOs have had alpha testers in years past, it usually consists of a small team of testers, or maybe just friends or family of the developers. Some of the features missing that you might expect could be a temporary economy or no economy, missing features such as crafting, classes, gear progression, PvE or PvP polish, or missing content from those two main play types, such as no raids or not enough systems to yet fully allow for some massive PvP features. There will be numerous game-breaking bugs that can cause you to lose progress, fall through the world, or be stuck in terrain, or not be able to log in at all. There could be missing graphics or temporary placeholder UI. An alpha game is not usually optimized and will not have all of its graphics systems and rendering tech in place. You could see hotfixes and multiple updates given within weeks or the same month. You could even still see some fundamental changes in features or some systems or features being reworked or scrapped altogether. So does any of that sound familiar to you? This sounds exactly like what we have been playing for years now. The toughest part for most people to understand, especially outside who have never played the game, is that with a typical game studio and the typical game creation formula, whatever typical is nowadays, Star Citizen falls outside of this norm. Granted, over the past 10 years or so, paying to test has definitely become normalized in the form of various early access games. Even if some players refuse to partake, it's still nothing new. Star Citizen's continued growth is definitely an anomaly in gaming and why it's so easily attacked, but do keep in mind, not that I'm trying to turn this video into a defender of Star Citizen's monetary model, but Star Citizen does not require anyone to pay anything more than the basic starter ship cost. Every other dollar that has gone into the game is simply because fans believe in the project and want to further donate to its success. So yes, while Star Citizen has been in development for over a decade and it's still in an alpha state, it's also unlike any other major game out there and would have died years ago if not for the model which sustains it now, which yes, has meant that we have all been a part of the longest alpha test in gaming history. But just think if Grand Theft Auto 6 had been letting players pay a box price of, let's say $60 to $250, but probably at least $250 if I'm being honest, for the chance to play it in alpha from pretty much day one of development. But I'm sure many fans would have paid around $1,000 to get in that early, just as players for other non-released MMOs have forked over that kind of money to get into an alpha. But anyway, Grand Theft Auto 6 has reportedly been in development since 2014, which is how many years now? Oh, it's been a decade. And what do you think the state of that game would have been through all of these years? Probably better than Star Citizen, but remember, this is a game coming from a tried and true AAA developer who already had their own studio, teams, workflows, and knew how to make this type of game. The only difference between the two scenarios is one was mostly funded ahead of time, so it did not need to rely on selling dreams to players to get off the ground, and the other did. Now, I do acknowledge that Red Dead 2 and continued GTA 5 money coming in helped fund GTA 6, but regardless, they were building off their success and not creating from scratch. So anyway, I hope this video has helped change some perspectives and give some food for thought. I know it's an alpha excuse can get old and has definitely worn out its welcome, and the game taking so long is a fair criticism. For me, it all came down to poor project management, which would appear to be in the company's past. It also came down to a learn-as-you-go formula, which, let's be honest, was not the best way to create a game, much less a large AAA company from scratch. Now, had the original pitch been to create an epic space sim MMO as well as the company to make said game, as well that it would take more than a decade, I doubt many people would have been on board with that. And to be fair, I don't think Chris Roberts truly thought it would take that long to do both. But again, that shows his then lack of project management skills. There's no doubt that he and others underestimated the desire for such a game from players, and I do not think that he has ever set out to deceive players on purpose, despite what others have thought. I just think it came from a naive look and overestimation of what he could do. But through pure dumb luck and many players' wallets, the dream is ever closer to being true. No matter what you want to call the game we now play, whether that be a truly live game or an alpha, one thing's for sure, there's still a long way to go, and yet this does truly feel like a momentous and watershed moment in the game and for CIG. I wish them the best of luck. Thank you for watching, and no matter what, I hope you all stay positive out there, and I'll see you out in the verse.